All right, looking back on last week against Mercer, I thought I thought obviously it was great to get a win and one which we were able to play a number of guys, got some young players in the game, which was really good. I thought the guys were really dialed in throughout the week. They were locked in and focused. I thought early in the game, I thought there was some inconsistency. I thought we gave up too many yards in the first half, more than we had given up in some SEC games. And so that was something that we really challenged our guys in the second half to respond and become more consistent. And what was exciting about that was, even with some younger players playing in the game, we played with a lot more consistency. The end of the second half, or excuse me, the end of the first half, and then the rest of the game in the second half, I thought we played pretty consistent football. We are continuing to take the ball away from people. There's a sense of urgency from our guys to do that. There's an effort that you see play in and play out of our guys trying to take the ball away. Obviously, the takeaways themselves, the forced fumbles, the interceptions is what everybody else sees. But when you go back and you watch the film, there were numerous times where our guys are trying to take the ball off of them, and it's just a matter of time before, on any given play, you can create a takeaway. And so I think our guys have to continue to do that. I think that's become a huge piece of our identity as a football team. We're taking the ball away from people. We're turning those takeaways into touchdowns, and that has to continue. So going into to this week, this is certainly an exciting environment that we're going into play in Norman, Oklahoma. A very proud program who's entering the SEC obviously this year, and is going to fight. I think they've had some ups and downs, but I think they've fought really hard as a football team, and they've got a quarterback that to me is very talented, can make all the throws. Does some things with his feet that obviously has kept them in position to move the chains. He does a really good job in some of their zone read game and all the different quarterback option concepts that they have. Does a nice job delivering the ball, can make all the throws across the board. I think they run the ball hard out of the backfield. And then they've got some guys that are coming back in their wide receiver core that are pretty dynamic. And when they were healthy at the beginning of the year, they were doing some really special things, and you're starting to see those guys back and playing now. So it'll be a great challenge for us, again, going on the road. Certainly what we were able to do the last time on the road, I think our players have understood, what it takes to go have a sense of urgency, to go play well on the road. And so that needs to show up this Saturday night. So looking forward to the week of preparation and prepare our guys to maximize their opportunity in Norman.
Yeah, you're third in the country right now in takeaways with 24. What culture-wise did you try to instill, and that you really feel has, locked in by now for these guys to really be getting takeaways?
Yeah. My dad taught me this years ago. I mean, takeaways, it's almost like muscle memory. You have to continue to preach it. You have to continue to drill it. You talk about it before we go out to a scout team period. When we start every practice, we start a takeaway circuit. And that started from spring ball to fall camp to every day we go out there on Tuesday and Wednesday in practice. We have 6 different drills that our guys go through that emphasize of creating interceptions, punching at the ball, raking at the quarterback, a number of different areas where you can take the ball away from an offense. And what happens is all of a sudden you do those drills day in and day out, and then you go to scout team periods and you say, okay, this period right here, we're not going to work on tackling, we're going to work on punching the ball out. So I don't want to see any wrap-ups. All I want to see is you punching the ball out. And all of a sudden it becomes muscle memory on game day. So when Damani Jackson comes off the edge in a corner fire, he thinks, okay, I have a chance to be able to knock this ball out. Well, that's the exact same drill that he's been doing for 9 months now, is punching the ball in that exact moment. It's just now becoming muscle memory for him. So those are the things that are exciting, and certainly, like I said, it's becoming an identity of who we are as a team, and so that has to continue moving forward.
Let's go to Colin on the left.
Hey, Kane, I know he's been in the starting position for a couple of weeks now, but how have you seen Bray Hubbard kind of take on that leadership role at the safety position in absence of Keon?
Well, I think probably what's most impressive about Bray is that his level of preparation has not changed now that he is the starter from when he was backup for Keon Sabb. And so when the opportunity came, Bray was so locked in every single week and prepared like he was a starter, did a great job of communicating even with that second group of twos in practice every single day, and really was probably some of the glue that held some of those young DBs together, that when his opportunity came, he was ready for it. And so he's playing at a really high level because he's prepared at a really high level all season long. And so that's probably one of the things I'm most pleased and impressed with Bray. He's a natural playmaker. He's got great instincts on the ball. He does a really good job of understanding how to play with leverage, and from a run fit capability standpoint, he's doing some tremendous things there as well. So just really pleased when you see a guy get rewarded for all the work that he's put in, and when an opportunity comes, he's made the most of it.
Let's go to Emily Grace in the middle of the room there.
Coach, prior to Saturday's game, I saw you encouraging Jalen Milroe, and we often see you two exchanging some words on the sidelines. How would you describe your relationship with him?
Well, Jalen is just obviously he's got a gravitational pull about the way that he carries himself. Right, here's a guy that is extremely talented. Has probably a ton of, what do you want to say, attention and fame and all those other things, but doesn't ever walk by you in the hallway without saying hello, asking about your family, asking how you're doing. And I think a guy like that is just really impressive to me, the way he carries himself. I enjoy being around him. I enjoy talking to him all the time. I've always said, a quarterback and a punter are a defensive coordinator's two best friends, and so I like to hang out with my friends every now and then, right? So and encourage them. So they, I think the way that he has battled through some of the adversities that we've had this season is really impressive, and that's really what that conversation was about. Here we are on the back end of the season in November, battling our asses off every single week. And I think, he's a huge reason of why we've been able to have success in this moment. And so just giving him a little encouragement. I hope the volume wasn't too loud whenever you caught that.
Let's go to Tony on the front left.
How would you assess your team's pass rush in the last couple of weeks, and then going up against Oklahoma? Does that present? How do you exploit with them being last in the nation in sacks allowed?
Yeah. Obviously, when you look at that, you always want to be mindful of disrupting the quarterback, and I think you have to do it different ways. Obviously, when you have the personnel to just, simply rush somebody off the edge every single time, right? That might be, one way. I think at times we can do that. I think our success in generating pass rush has been through creating multiple looks up front, and so we'll continue to do those things and mix some of the pressures that we're given and mix some of the looks and even some of the formational or the alignments that we show pre-snap, and then what we get in and out of, so that we can create as many one-on-one matchups as possible, and then also, try to schematically, isolate maybe a certain, guard or running back or a offensive tackle or whatever it may be. So I think we're doing a better job of that. Part of that is me being better on the back end of the season, recognizing our personnel and what we do really well. And then, just as you start to see things from week to week in terms of what we do well and what we can take advantage of based off of what we see from the offense. So that I think we're trending in the right direction, but certainly that needs to continue.
Let's go to Ryan in the back of the room.
Hey, Coach, more of a broad question about you. The beginning of this season, we kind of talked about your transition from head coach to coordinator. You said you're enjoying more of the X's and O's. What has this experience been like this season, and kind of personally, a lot of pressure on being the defensive coordinator at Alabama? But what has it been for you personally?
How so? I'm just kidding with you. I think this has been it's a very different role than being a head coach, and part of me leaving a head coaching job is because I trusted the guy that was going to be in the role of the head coaching position, and Kalen, just to watch him and see the way that he has navigated this team throughout our first year. I've told you guys this before. His superpower is his consistency, in the face of adversity or success. He's the same guy over and over again. And I think that relentless consistency has been what's allowed us to kind of navigate through the highs and lows that we've seen so far this season and putting us positioned to play our best football on the back end of the season. So for me to see that in him, and then, for him to be such a supportive head coach for the way we do things offensively, defensively, special teams, has allowed me to maximize what we're doing defensively, because I feel so supported, from the head coach position. And so, he gives great thoughts. He gives great accountability. We trust each other, so we can say whatever needs to be said, and he does a tremendous job in that regard. And so I've really enjoyed the nuances and the little details in coordinating and making adjustments at halftime and figuring out how to stop people, and maybe how to, the challenge, right, is when somebody's doing something well against you, how do you still find a way to stop what they're doing and yet still be aggressive so that you can create takeaways and get off the field on third down. And, quite honestly, I would say, I have gotten better and better as a season. I've probably knocked some of the rust off, as we've gone through the season. And I think that's what everybody in the building has to do. I think, you either get better or you get worse. And I think step by step as a football team, we're getting better, and that includes me as a play caller and a defensive coordinator.
We've got 2 questions on the front line. We'll start with Kennington, and then we'll go to Joe.
What'd you make of Quay Rusaw's interception, and just kind of how have you seen his confidence grow over the course of the season?
Yeah, the dude's made 2 great interceptions, so far this year, and I think that he's continuing to grow as a football player. Part of what makes you a great defender, especially at that wolf position, is that you're creating production for the defense, and I think we're seeing him do more and more of that. That was a great, that interception came because a number of things happened well. They got in a third down call. They hard counted. They checked. We checked into a pressure, and then everybody up front, executed that really well. Deontay Lawson, we talk about matching the hands of the quarterback. So when the quarterback's hands went up, he matched the hands. The ball got tipped. Really, if the ball doesn't get tipped, Quay's really still in a really good position there to go. He may have picked the ball off anyway, but now when the ball gets tipped and he has to dive and work through that. So I just think he's doing a really good job of continuing to stay relentless in his process. And now that because of injury and because he's producing at a higher level, he is playing more and more consistent as we go through the season. And certainly, when you think about some of the things that have happened in that room, and we've got a couple of guys that were down, I mean, he's stepping up at the right time.
Staying in that room, how would you assess the play of Yonze Pierre? And secondly, if I could, how do you balance with Oklahoma preparing for a quarterback like Jackson Arnold, and then with Michael Hawkins on the back on the sidelines? 2 different skill sets there.
Yeah. First, Yonze, I think, is taking steps in the right direction. I think it's fun for me to watch the maturity of a young man. Certainly you think about year to year, but just for a younger guy, right, you can almost see weekly someone maturing and the way that they're going about their preparation to maximize their opportunities on game day. Yonze is one guy that you could point to, and there's a number of them right now in our young defense, which we are, that are trying, to operate at a more consistent level than they were early on in the season. And I think a lot of that has to do with there's a lot of older players that are setting the example, and they're starting, those older players are producing, and our younger players are seeing this is what it's going to take, right? I don't think Yonze Pierre would be in the same position had he not had Q Robinson in that room, right, as the example of what it's supposed to look like. And then from a quarterback position, that's always the case, right? You every single week, if you're doing your due diligence as a defensive staff, you go, what is this team's identity? What do they want to get done from the quarterback position, and who do they want to feature from a skill position standpoint? And then if they have another quarterback that comes in the game, what are your answers going to be? And so you're either working those things and maximizing, your opportunities if that happens, or you don't, right? And so that's something that every single week we're going to look at and try to do. I do think there's a lot of similarities in what they ask those guys to do. You know, skill set wise, there might be some nuances there, but for us, you know, I don't know if it is completely different from one guy to the next in terms of what they were asking those guys to do schematically. So it'll be a challenge, though. I mean, I think this team, you know, when you're playing a night game in your home stadium against Alabama, we're going to get every bit of their best effort. You know what I mean? And that to me is the, you know, regardless of who you're playing. I use the example of our guys. You know, the last 3 weeks, okay, you went up against 3 top 25 teams, right, and some really good offenses, and you gave up more yards against Mercer than you did against those 3 teams. So what matters is your ability to, you know, to be able to play with a sense of urgency in the moment, right, and not wait around, but to do it from the first play to the second play to the last play of the game. And I think we're learning those things as a team.
All right, we're going to finish up with Chase on the far left.
At inside linebacker, we occasionally see the sub package with Lawson and Campbell and Jefferson all on the field together, usually with Jefferson on an edge. What does it bring to the defense when those 3 are in there at the same time?
Yeah. Well, you know, again, all those guys are older, more experienced guys. And so certainly, you know, there's a level of experience that, you know, that those guys carry together. Athletically, from a linebacker standpoint, those 3 dudes are, you know, they can make space tackles. They can do things. They can blitz off the edge. They can blitz up the middle. They can, you know, play zone coverage. We can ask them to play man coverage on backs and tight ends and occasionally even receivers and with help, but they can do those things, right? So their skill set allows us to do a lot of things schematically, and those guys can cover a lot of grass and space. So it's, you know, an advantage to us to be able to have three of those guys on the field. And then I would say from the other side, you know, Jahad Campbell and what he does from a pass rush standpoint, you know, we put him at the defensive end position the other day. He goes in and gets the only sack that we came up with of the day, right? So those are the things that, you know, that we've got to continue to utilize our personnel because, you know, quite honestly, right, you know, just like everybody in the country, right, everybody's a little more thin at the end of the season. And so you got to find creative ways to get, you know, your personnel in position, you know, to maximize value for your defense. And so I think getting those 3 guys on there does that. Okay, thanks, guys. Roll Tide.